Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome today to a video inspired by a comment from one of you lot last week. It read, "Jody, why have you stopped reviewing Seikos?" And I thought, I haven't stopped reviewing Seikos. And then I thought, actually, have I stopped reviewing Seikos? So I had a look back through the 50 videos that I've made so far this year, and you know what? They were right. Here we are approaching the end of April, so 1/3 of the way into 2025, and I have not reviewed one single new Seiko model this year. Now that got me thinking, how many Seikos would I normally have reviewed on the channel in 4 months? And have I missed some amazing new Seikos in 2025? And if not, what is going on? So first, let's look at the raw numbers, because I know you love a statistic as much as I love a statistic. Then let's look at what models Seiko has in fact released so far in 2025 and give them a collective thumbs up or a collective thumbs down. And then finally, I spoke to a contact I have here in Sydney who is a Seiko retailer, and I asked him what is going on with the brand this year. Make sure you stick around for his response. It is very telling of the watch industry as a whole in 2025. So then, let's start with some statistics. I looked back over the last 5 calendar years, so 20 through 24, and analysed just how many Seikos I have reviewed over the course of each of those 12-month periods. Some of the highlights of each year, and whether the reviews were overall positive or overall negative that year. Let's start by looking all the way back at 2020. Now, that year I reviewed no less than 14 Seikos. Now, I did have a bit of a moan about the 5KX, and I wasn't all that enamoured by the updated Alpinist, but I loved the Golden Tuna, the Golden Turtle, the Negroni Cocktail Time, the Arnie reissue, which I still love, and the SRPE, a watch I labelled the best new Seiko in years. 2020 also saw the reissue of the Seiko Willard. Now, I first borrowed one and then I bought one, which I quickly sold because the quality control on my example was very poor. On balance though, a good year for Seiko with some important releases. In 2021, I also made 14 videos about Seikos. Highlights that year included the SPB 143, the SPB 185 and the King Samurai, all fantastic dive watches, plus the reissued Seiko Speed Timer. But I did have a moan about the price of those 38mm solar divers, and in the middle of 2021, after yet more shocking alignment issues on a borrowed sharp edge GMT, I made my No More Seikos video when I boldly claimed that I would never review another Seiko worth more than $1,000 again, because I simply didn't trust them from a QT standpoint at that price. And you know what? I've stuck to my guns. I haven't reviewed a Seiko over $1,000 since then. So a lot of important models, and on balance a positive set of reviews that year, but not without a few concerns. In 2022, I only did 8 specific model reviews that year, but highlights included the larger Speed Timer and the 5KX GMT, both watches that I still highly rate. However, I did have a right moan at their new SRPG field watch, and even made a video claiming that old Seikos were better than new Seikos, so you can begin to see that the worm is turning. In 2023, I reviewed 11 different Seikos. Highlights that year included the Lark Limited Edition, the Hojicha Green Tea Cocktail Time, and Irish Coffee Cocktail Time. So very much the cocktail time range got the plaudits in 23. But negatives included the overpriced and overrated Navigator reissue, their nasty Asian market plastic Moonswatch rival, and the fact that my rather expensive King Seiko couldn't keep time for toffee. And last year in 2024, I reviewed 12 different Seikos, so exactly one per month. I liked the red Aussie Alpinist and a couple of reissues, but I did not like the price gouging that was so clearly evident on another couple of reissues. and the bits and pieces shogurai, I found that watch so bland and so thoroughly forgettable that I flipped mine within days of making the video. So I guess you can see a pattern emerging here. I was mostly sweetness and light around the brand 5 years ago. Nowadays, not quite so much. Their prices have gone up and up, their quality has not followed suit, and standout models are becoming few and far between these days. But even last year, I still found 12 Seikos that I cared about enough to talk about, and I think I bought 7 of the 12 myself. This year, there has been nothing. There just hasn't been a single Seiko that has caught my attention enough to try and borrow it, let alone to try and buy it. So then, let us move on to part 2 then. Was I wrong? Have Seiko released a slew of crackers this year and somehow I've just managed to miss them all? Well, let's see what they launched so far in 2025 and you can give me your opinions in the comment section. These are all from the Seiko Australia website or from the WatchGecko website in the UK. There's not much happening, to be honest. They did release this Astron in March. This limited edition 1965 reissue followed that one, and was itself followed by this 1968 diver and GMT reissue combo. But check the prices. Now these images, as discussed, are all from WatchGecko, so they are in Great British pounds, but you get the idea. They are all well over my self-imposed limit anyway. And let's not even go there with the Marine Master at £4,000 UK. Plus there were a few of what they're calling these King Seiko Vanak reissues. Again, just not anything that I would term affordable, let alone affordable and interesting. And then of course we come to the new SPB dive range. Not only are they over budget, coming in at 1,750 Aussie dollars retail, but they're also utterly stinking. It's as if Seiko wanted to do something with an angled bezel like an Aqua Racer or a Seamaster, but then lost their bottle halfway through the design process. And we ended up with this complete mess of a watch with an identity crisis. It doesn't know whether it's full of curves or full of angles. I will forgive myself for not rushing out to get one of those in for review. So this therefore has been a pretty short section. It has indeed been slim pickings from Seiko so far this year. But why? What then did my industry insider say? A man who shall of course remain nameless, but who is an influential character in the Australian watch scene and sells an awful lot of Seikos. I asked him what was going on and he came up with a very interesting perspective. He said that he thought there had been something of a saturation of stock on the market and that brands, including Seiko, had actually been cutting back on production this year. Now, I guess therefore that would mean cutting back on the production of new models as well as the production of existing models. He said that there had been an increasing attempt to try and match supply with demand so as not to create a glut of watches, forcing retailers like him to have to discount those watches deeply just to keep stock moving out the door. I remember he told me in a previous conversation that generally there were only a couple of Seiko releases each year that commanded full RRP, that really inspired the public to buy them at retail. The most recent two have been the Pogue Speed Timer and the Red Alpinist, both 2024 model releases. As far as this year was concerned, he cited the Kentaro Yoshida 5KXs, 3 limited editions in collaboration with a Japanese artist, but even then, these are still being heavily discounted online already. Now, he did say that Seiko were not alone in this, and with the recent shockwaves regarding American tariffs, particularly on Swiss watches, all brands are now looking to cut production to better match their annual outputs with the demand for their watches. Finally, he pointed me in the direction of a brand new Seiko released this week that I had seen myself elsewhere on Facebook that very day. They launched these 3 new ones, 1960s style pressages. They're calling the SRPL line. They actually look alright, and somewhat unusually for a Seiko, they feature a date complication at 6. But they still only feature a 4-arm movement and hard Lex crystal for the princely sum of 895 Australian dollars. I'm not sure that there's quite enough there for me to part with that amount of money. And it doesn't look like there's going to be a flood of the things in online retailers quite yet. So then, to return to the beginning, have I stopped reviewing Seikos? Absolutely not. I'm just waiting for them to release something worth reviewing this year. I mean, I should have on balance have reviewed 4 already so far in 2025, 1 per month. That seems to have been the batting average over the last 5 years, but there has just been nothing of note to get my teeth into. Perhaps there's just currently a collective pause for breath amongst buyers, leaving producers more reluctant to produce stock of existing models or push through new models. But I think we can also see that Seiko as a brand, they haven't been dropping nearly as many winners over the past couple of years as they were a few years before that. Prices have gone up and they're beginning to recycle themselves. It's reissues of reissues now, so even if their output does pick up notably over the second half of 2025, to be honest, it's unlikely that I'm going to find a dozen affordable Seikos that I actually want to review. So there you have it. I can't speak for you. I quite enjoyed that video. It's always fun to dig through my library, to go through the archives and look for patterns. Not a lot happening with Seiko this year, so why don't you check out a couple of my very favourites from previous years. Thanks for watching this one. I will see you again in the next one.